Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. Today, we are facing a public nuisance head-on because lice happens, and when it does, we're learning there should be no shame. In fact, updated guidance from federal health authorities suggests kids don't even need to be sent home from school if a nurse finds lice. And Tennessee has embraced that guidance with an updated manual for schools to use. It was put out a couple of years ago, but it's proven hard to put into practice. Williamson County Schools put a pause on updating its policy last fall when questions started flying about allowing kids with active lice to remain in class. It's a balance of stopping the spread while also tamping down the shame and stigma that goes along with carrying around a parasite. So, this hour, we're going to get to know the dreaded four-letter word a little better, and we'll start by sitting in on a head check. Evelyn Thompson is the lead technician with a mobile treatment service called Lice is Simple. She's combing through the wet hair of a 4-year-old who's being extremely cooperative, I'll say. Please try not to squirm as she explains.
Well, I'm making contact with her scalp. I'm dragging that along the scalp through the tip of her hair. And then I'm brushing off on this paper towel to see if I can find any lice eggs or bugs.
What's special about the comb you're using?
The prongs are really tight. These are professional combs, so the prongs are really tight, unlike drugstore combs. And they're spiraled. It's hard to tell because they're so tight, but they're spiraled around the edges, which helps them really grab the hair.
And what are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for eggs, lice eggs, which are small and tan against the paper towel, which I'm not seeing anything on her. They're all about the size of a small freckle. They're very tiny. And if we see something that looks like that, we'll typically make sure, it's moving around on the paper towel, meaning it's not a part of the paper towel. And then I'll press it between my 2 nails to see if it pops. And if it pops, then we know it's an egg. Yeah. And once we identify that, we'll generally just move to a treatment.
But once you find any, you don't need to find any more.
No. If I find just an egg that pops, we know there's active, viable head lice. Yeah. Now, if it didn't pop, I would keep going until I find a bug or I find an egg that has, a viable pop to it. Yeah. And she's doing so good. She's being so patient.
Yes, the children do squirm during this. That's Evelyn Thompson of Lice is Simple. Company founder Santiago Galera joins us in the studio, along with Dr. Joseph Gigante, a pediatrician at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. And a reminder that we are streaming on YouTube today. There are no lice to see in here, I don't think, but we would welcome you to watch if you'd prefer. And you're welcome to leave comments there directly on the stream. That's at youtube.com/@WPLN. So, Dr. Gigante, let's start with kind of this evolving view of lice. I think there was a time when students, might not be allowed back to school if there were any remnants of lice found in their hair. And now we're kind of talking about not sending kids home when there are active lice found by a school nurse. Were we just being overly cautious before?
Yeah, I think that's true, Blake. Before the American Academy of Pediatrics came up with updated guidelines about 3 years ago, and I still have vivid memories myself of being in elementary school and having head lice checks taking place periodically and thinking about, it was unfortunate when a child with head lice was identified, they'd be pulled out of the classroom.
Right, everybody knew.
Everybody knew, and then there was a letter sent home. It's like head lice has been identified in the classroom or in the preschool room. And what we've kind of come to learn is that it's really difficult to get head lice from another child. Really, it requires head-to-head contact. So, an important thing to know is head lice don't fly, they don't jump, they crawl. So it really needs that close head-to-head contact for one child with head lice to give it to another child with head lice. So it's not, and I think people have these visions of head lice invading the classroom and taking over the classroom, and that's just not what happens. So as a result of learning that, and I think also seeing that mass screenings or screenings in school don't really prevent lice outbreaks in school. So you've got that. You've also got that stigmatization of that child being pulled out of the classroom. And as a result of that, the AAP said, well, there's not much to be gained by doing these screenings, keeping kids out of school, because it really is difficult for one child to transmit it to another. Let these kids go back to school once it's been identified and they're being treated.
Well, and is it also a recognition that it's really just a nuisance more than it is a real public health hazard?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's people, quite frankly, people are grossed out, right? And it really is a nuisance. But I think one of the things I always talk to parents about is that your child's not going to get some kind of disease if they do get head lice. Your child's head will itch. It does cause itching, and your child will scratch. Quote unquote, worst case scenario is if they scratch so much, they may get some sores in their scalp, but that's it. And they're not going to get any kind of life-threatening disease. And I use the analogy of it's not like getting a tick bite where you can get something more serious like Lyme disease or Rocky Mountain spotted fever that can land your child in the hospital or in the intensive care unit. Head lice don't cause disease. So it's not really a health hazard from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, Santi, I'll confess that the reason we're even doing this episode here at kind of the beginning of school was a couple months ago. We were talking, and there was several folks here at the station whose families had dealt with lice at their schools and with their kids, and it's like, maybe that's a good sort of back to school episode that we'll do. And then in prepping for this show, I'm sort of learning, is school really the time that it transmits the most? Do you see any difference between summer, fall, or is it really moving around all the time?
It's really moving around all the time. Kids are always together. They're always having sleepovers. They're always hanging out. They're taking selfies. During the summer, they're at camps where they're having activities together, and head-to-head contact happens at camps a lot of the times. And when they come back to school, they get it at those camps, and then they get back to school, and that's when more head-to-head contact happens. And so it's really going around year-round. So it's really important that people if they're having symptoms of their head scratching, a lot of parents think that it's just their kids scratching their head sometimes, but it's important to know that lice is going around, and head checks sometimes are necessary. Well,
so does it matter if you catch it early, or is catching it later going to be harder to deal with, or just more uncomfortable?
Absolutely. So timing does matter. If you catch an infestation early, you are preventing it from spreading to the rest of your family. Yeah. And it's a lot of stress for mothers. We found that a lot of mothers in the past have had a hard time treating their kids. And that's a big factor on why they choose our services, because they don't want to deal with them themselves.
Are you saying because the treatment isn't enough, you actually do have to pull out the lice?
Yeah, so a lot of parents and our clients are dealing with something called super lice, which are immune to a lot of the over-the-counter treatments. And so because a lot of the over-the-counter treatments aren't working, combing everything out is necessary.
Dr. Gigante, is that what you were referring to, that like you might have an over-the-counter that you would tell a family to do, but that if that doesn't work, does that mean it might be one of those kind of resistant lice? So how much of an issue is that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons why it may not work. One is, I think following the instructions on the label of whatever over-the-counter anti-lice medicine that you use. And I think so the issue of if it's not used appropriately or you're not following the directions, it may not work. The second thing is that reason why it may not be working is just the issue of resistance. It may be one of these resistant head lice. And then the other option or the other thing that sometimes happens is you actually treat the child gets better, but then they get reinfected. So especially if there's another family member who has the head lice, and to kind of follow up Santiago's point of if they're sleeping together in the same bed, you treat child A, they get cleared, but child B still has the head lice.
You don't build up immunity to lice.
And then they reinfect their siblings. So, so there are a number of different factors why the initial treatment may not work.
Yeah. Well, so this issue of super lice, is this kind of what antibiotics did to some bugs, like same thing, where the treatments just are not as effective because they've built up a resistance?
And it's the latter. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to be accurate with the diagnosis, because I think so often parents freak out, they get stressed. As a result of that, they treat their child. They may not necessarily have needed the treatment because they didn't have the head lice. And just like antibiotic resistance, if we, using these over-the-counter medicines over and over again when it's not necessary has helped build this resistance. Yeah. But then you say, as you say, super lice again. There's these images of these huge lice, taking over the world. And again, big picture, it's a nuisance. It stresses people out. But it's not going to cause your child any long-term harm or damage.
That's helpful to hear. But so tell me, in the medical community, you're kind of here, kind of tamping some of this concern down. Hey, not a real medical issue; it's a nuisance. But you're in the business of training new pediatricians. Is that what you find from folks coming just out of medical school, that they have learned this? Or are you teaching them as well?
We're trying to teach them as well. Again, no one likes lice. Again, everyone is freaked out when they hear lice, see lice. So I think it is kind of just tamping down that anxiety to say this really isn't that big of an issue. And it is also very difficult to get head lice. So I always tell the residents, you're going into the room, unless you're rubbing your head against that patient's head, you're not going to get the head lice. So just, again, take a deep cleansing breath, go in, do your exam, and if you do diagnose the head lice, go ahead and treat them appropriately.
Yeah. Well, if you're just joining us, I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville, and we've got an hour, whether you like it or not, dedicated to lice. And our little one's getting it. And as a reminder, we're streaming video from the studio at the Nashville Public Radio YouTube page. Is there a reason that it's primarily kids who get it?
I think just because, again, following up Santiago's point, they are in such close contact with one another. Again, if they're sleeping in the same bed or posing for a selfie, head to head for a selfie, if they're sharing hats or they're sharing combs and brushes, other kind of headgear, it's easily passed on from one child to another. So it's just because of that contact that children have with one another, the preschool and school-age children, that we not similar kind of contact with adults.
Yeah. Well, Santiago, for when you all are called in and you kind of come in and do your mobile treatment, are you treating everybody in the house? Because it sounds like that's not what's recommended, right? Or do you just only treat if you find the lice? How do you all handle that?
Yeah, so we do head checks. If we find lice on one of the kids, then we do head checks on the whole family. And depending on whether they have it or not, we just give a head check. And if they have it, we do a treatment.
Yeah. Is lice something that will clear on its own eventually?
No, it is not something that clears on its own. In 17 days, they are adults, and they start laying 8 eggs a day. And so it's important to get it taken care of as soon as possible. Well,
Dr. Gigante, because I'd seen people, as I've now been reading more of kind of the medical literature on this, like, listen, more people, there's not great numbers out there. Well, we'll just let everyone know that. Yeah, not great stats. I think that's a pretty broad estimate. It's like 6 to 12 million kids a year are getting lice. I don't know if that means if the people who are recurring, they're counted in that, but I would say it's not even really a count. But, they'll say it's more people get the flu, more people get a cold every year, much more common. I guess the difference is your body clears those up. This, you need to take some sort of action, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as Santiago said, the lice are going to continue to mate and multiply. So if you make the diagnosis or if you identify them, they do need to be treated, because otherwise the lice will continue to grow in number with that child, and then potentially, again, if there's head-to-head contact with friends or family members or siblings, the lice are going to continue to spread.
And is the head enough, Santiago, or do you all what else do you do in a house where there has been lice? I mean, if they can only live on the head, does that mean this whole idea that you need to get an exterminator is kind of silly?
That is kind of silly, the idea of getting an exterminator. All you really need to do is heat kills lice. Anything above 130 degrees kills it. So if you can throw anything where your head has touched in the dryer for 30 minutes, that does the trick.
Oh, it's not soap, it's heat.
It's heat and freezing temperatures. So hair clips, hair brushes, you could throw them in a Ziploc bag and throw them in the freezer and lint roll and vacuum couches, and that does the trick.
Wow. Well, I'm sure there are folks who've done much more than that. Dr. Gigante, you have to leave after this segment. So is there anything you'd want to leave us with as we head into an infestation in our next break? Warning for listeners.
Yeah, just to follow up that point, I tell people you don't have to fumigate your house. Right. Just using the heat will kill the head lice. So I think people sometimes go overboard with regard to treatment. And as I said, just, the parting point is take a deep cleansing breath. It's okay. It's also not a sign of poor hygiene. So I think rich and poor get head lice. And as I like to say, head lice does not discriminate. Everyone gets it. It is not necessarily a sign of you've got poor hygiene or you don't take care of your children. It happens. Take care of it. You will be fine, hopefully, and your child will be fine.
Well, we need to take a break. When we come back, we're talking about how schools handle lice, including a local preschool that is in the midst of putting a stop to an infestation as we speak. So stay with us. This is Nashville.
All right, so things are kind of rough out there right now, but we're going to look on the bright side. For instance, what don't we have too much of? Well, one thing we don't have is lice, baby. That's right. Kind of impossible to get the lice, baby. All right, stop, collaborate, and listen. Yeah, I know that school's out of session. It's tough.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. I don't know what other music we might find to play with the word lice, but lice, baby. Thank you, Liv and Tasha, in the control room. So medical experts have decided that the way we used to treat lice and keep kids out of school until they could pass a no-nit check, it just wasn't worth the shame and stigma that it caused. Because as we heard in the last segment, it's really not much of a medical concern, but it can be a real nuisance. So schools in Tennessee are trying to be more sensitive while also stopping the spread. Stephanie Buck works at a preschool in Bellevue called Creative Youth Enrichment Center. They're now on the other side of an infestation that took down a lot of kids and teachers, including her.
Gosh, it's so hard as someone who does work in a preschool and then as a mom, because my daughter was really embarrassed when she found out that she was the first one who got checked and she had it. So I wouldn't want her to feel any kind of way. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, it just seems like a tricky thing because it's nice to say, yeah, let's get rid of the stigma. The kids, it doesn't really travel head to head like maybe people worry about sometimes in schools. And yet, when you learn there's a kid with lice in the class, right, well, we need to get him out of here, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it does travel because my entire school age and pre-K, except for a few kids, had it. So, yeah, it would be nice for everyone to get treated and take a break and get treated before they came back. I get it, though. Man, it's hard. You want to protect your baby's hearts, but you also want to keep them from getting lice.
That's Stephanie Buck from the Creative Youth Enrichment Center. We're joined in this much quieter studio than the mayhem that can happen at a preschool some days by the owner and co-executive director, Tanya Bryson. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have Nurse Catherine Smith. She's program manager for school health at the Metro Public Health Department. Also, president-elect of the Tennessee Association of School Nurses. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
So, Tanya, to talk us through this, what happened at Creative Youth Enrichment Center over the past couple weeks?
We had a lice party. So I got a phone call. It said that a child was scratching their head, just like it wouldn't stop. So I said, well, would you just check his head? And so we did. And sure enough, we found those little critters in there.
Yeah.
Those nits. And so this was in our pre-K room. And so I said, maybe we should just kind of peruse through. And so most of the kids in there didn't mind. There wasn't any shame in it. It was just like, hey, let's play, dress up and hair. And so anyway, one, and then another, and then another, and then another. And by the time we were finished, there were 13 children. And I mean, we have never had any kind of outbreak like this. And so we decided, since there were siblings also in our program, we went to pre-K 3. Well, there was another 8 in there. Wow. So anyway, it traveled, and our kids and our families, they're also create relationships. And so there are sleepovers on the weekends. There are parties, And so by the time it was finished, I think the only room, 2 rooms, toddlers, there weren't any in there, or babies, thank goodness. But we looked at each other like, what are we going to do? And the siblings that were home, and our staff, what was happening with them. So long story short, we started calling people. And one of the companies that we called was Santiago, who you heard in the last segment. His company, which is Lice is Simple. They agreed. He and Evelyn said, we'll be out. We'll check everybody. And if you have parents that want to be checked, we'll do it right here. If so they were an absolute lifesaver.
Yeah.
And we have never had it, quote, that easy. Because you usually depend on sending them home, parents doing the right thing. And you don't know if parents are doing the right thing as far as treating them at home and getting those little critters out.
Yeah. Catherine, it does seem like there's, even though we were hearing in the last segment about kind of broad checks don't make tons of sense, but when you start to see those kinds of numbers, it seems like there's some other, level that you go to. How are schools supposed to handle these kinds of outbreaks when it really is, you start talking about a couple dozen kids with it?
Yeah, it was great to hear your story, by the way. It sounds like you've really created a sense of community there, which can lead to a ripe environment for the spreading of
I thought about that.
Infestations.
If they're getting together more, that's more chance.
Yes, especially with sleepovers and parties and playing dress up and doing hair. And that's lovely. Look, we want children to do those things.
Right.
But in the school setting with kindergarten and up, you're not looking at that same type of environment. Yeah. And so doing broad head checks of entire classrooms is not part of the recommendation from the CDC or the National Association of School Nurses recommendation for treatment.
And is that because the older kids get, the less likely they are to be playing dress up with the same things or laying on the carpet and their heads are touching each other or whatever it would take?
Correct. And in a much more structured environment like traditional school is, they are not typically going to be rubbing their heads together. And while they do still create that sense of community and make friends and do sleepovers, those outbreaks are usually contained to a very, very small number of children.
Right. Well, when you're working with schools, which are almost exclusively public schools, right? You wouldn't work with a private school from Metro Public Health.
Not from Metro Public Health, no.
Right. But I guess with the Tennessee Association of School Nurses, you got school nurses that are at private schools. What is kind of the advice to them on how to handle when a single kid, is found to have lice?
So the recommendation is, and typically what schools follow, is they let the child stay at school that day and they send information home to the family on how to take care of it, whether that's to reach out to their primary care provider or seek guidance from the school nurse and getting some lice advice. And then they can come back to school for their education the next day. It's more important that they're in school learning than it is for them to be out of school because of lice.
I'm guessing when you're working with even a school nurse, perhaps, but certainly the administration or teachers, they might have a puzzled look when you tell them that. How do you make the case that, yes, indeed, it is more important for them to not kind of be excluded than, to get this lice treated straight away?
So typically, lending a listening ear and letting them vent is really helpful. And then addressing their fears and concerns head on, in that no, lice don't jump. No, you're not going to get it from giving that child a quick sidebar hug, or it's not going to be on your plastic chair. You're going to be okay. And these are the recommendations from American Academy of Pediatrics, National Association of School Nurses, and just trying to allay those fears a little bit.
But I imagine the teachers or the principal or whoever you might be working with knows they're also going to have to face the parents.
Yes, the parents. We love the parents. We want to guide them on how to take care of their children if they have a lice outbreak in their home as well. We're happy to give advice to them.
If you're just joining us, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Blake Farmer. We're streaming on the Nashville Public Radio YouTube page today. If you'd like to peek inside the studio with us for an episode about when lice happens. So, Tanya, at your all's preschool, you all have had lice before, but not like this. How did you handle it in the past?
Things were a little different. It was maybe one or two cases.
Yeah.
And I think everybody used to go, oh my goodness, there's head lice. Let's get them home, and call and tell the parent, we suspect that your child has head lice. Please come pick them up as soon as possible. And that's just not the way it is now. It's completely different as far as there are so many companies, there's so many treatments that are available, and it's not that fear that they don't jump from place to place, and so it's a totally different feel than it was even 6, 7, 8 years ago. But this was definitely the largest infestation that I have been a part of.
Well, so let me ask you about the stigma, because it's not just personal. Listen, does any preschool want to be like, yeah, we've had an issue? I'll be frank, I was a little surprised that you were not only willing for me to come out to your preschool and kind of follow Santi and Evelyn while they were working on some kids, but also, sure, I'll come on your show and talk about our experience. I don't know. What have you had to do some your own soul searching of saying, listen, if we really don't want there to be stigma, then I'm going to be straight with this too?
I wrestled with the idea of coming on. I was like, I don't know. Should I do this? But head lice is like anything else. You've got to talk about it and get the word out that it's not as bad as you think it is. I mean, yes, we had quite a few kids with it, and it went to parents and siblings, but it's manageable.
Right.
And also, I think we let the parents know that they're not going to be in harm's way as far as a disease or something like that. It's nits, it's little buggies, and we started joking, and grandparents came in, and moms and dads came in, and we just, we came together as a community and took care of it.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid lining up for whole classroom head checks. And to be honest, that was a surefire way for everyone to know who has the lice.
Oh, yeah.
And so also that's another way to help decrease that stigma is if you're not doing whole classroom head checks in a 5th grade classroom at school,
right,
the talk isn't going to be there to help keep that stigma alive. It'll help if it's private, like healthcare should be, then those children who do show signs of incessant itching. And I mean, just sitting here talking about it now, I want to scratch my head. So
That's a true thing.
Well, I do wonder if there are families that are involved who I don't know, that you had to work with, that you had to coach them and say that this approach is how we're going to do this.
Yes, but the relationships that we have developed have just been wonderful because we do have that sense of community and family. We want them to think of our place as their second home. They spend so much time with us. We want to have that communication open. And so there were a couple. There was one family in particular that they went home and treated themselves. And on the recheck, which Santiago and Evelyn came back to do, there was lice found. And so it's like, okay, I did the treatment. What do it was that stark reality that, oh no, they still have lice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But good news is when they came to recheck, after they came and they spent hours and hours and hours with us, it was wonderful. That was the only family that still had it. So, I mean, it was a gift that we found them and they came out and were willing to take, like I said, grandparents and siblings and
I feel like your ability to reach out for that support from community resources is important as well.
Yes.
And that's a good example for other centers and schools to do the same.
Yeah. I mean, this was, they came out and did head checks at no cost.
Yeah. But it is obviously it can be effective, but it is costly to have somebody else do this. Did you have folks kind of balk at the cost that it might be, or was it just, well, thank heavens we can catch it now before the rest of the family gets it?
I would say probably half and half.
Yeah.
Some were like, here, you can take care of it.
Right,
Here's my child. Let's take care of it. And the others were, I'm just going to treat it at home.
Yeah.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Catherine, can you talk to me about sort of the way policies, if you can kind of put your Tennessee Association of School Nurses hat on. Obviously, school districts have policies about how they handle these things, but it all matters just about how they sort of implement the policy. It's like whatever the words are on the page, how does a school really handle it when it happens? Are you seeing a need for school districts across the state to revisit their policies, or is it more kind of about just education like you're doing right here?
It really is about education because there are so many myths and so many misunderstandings about lice out there through the years. This isn't a topic most people talk about. So you bringing this on air is amazing.
Wow. Some people have said it's not amazing, but they said, why are you doing a show about lice? I'm like, I'll just listen to the show.
There you go.
But so really, though, you feel like education could be enough. It's not that because, for instance, one of the things that kicked this off while we're talking about it is because Williamson County Schools was like, hey, we ought to get in line with what the Tennessee Department of Health is saying and change our policy. It would have a substantive change to the words on the page that are their lice policy. And it didn't take much discussion to realize, like, oh, this is going to be contentious.
Yes.
Is there a way to avoid the contention and still get the same effect?
I think it's in the delivery methods and your communication with those families and explaining the why behind what you're doing and the reasoning and the research and the recommendations from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, your primary care physicians. It is well established that this is not a health hazard. It is a nuisance and a very annoying one for sure.
Well, thank you, Catherine Smith. You'll be hanging out with us for the rest of the show, and School Director Tanya Bryson. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm glad to hear that it's in the rearview mirror now. We'll say goodbye to Tanya, keep Catherine for our final segment about preventing lice and some of the misconceptions that are out there. We haven't hit all of them yet, so stay with us. This is Nashville.
I remember when I got head lice. I was playing my bass and I felt a nasty bite. It wasn't very nice. I can't remember what song it was, but I think it was A Hard Day's Night.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. You know, Blackbird really is one of my favorite songs. And it may not be anymore after what Liv Lombardi just did. Oh, that was Tasha A.F. Limley, our managing editor. If you got to hear the end of the last segment, you'll have to go back if you didn't hear it, because it was a song about lice to the tune of Blackbird by the Beatles. We titled this episode When Lice Happens, because it does happen. It happens to millions of kids every year, and there is such a stigma around it, as we have talked about right here for the last 40 minutes. Such a stigma that when Marcela Naras moved her business here from California, she didn't even put the name of her business on the door. There is just a red dot. I met her in her salon in Brentwood, where she has slogans inside that say, "Friends tell friends."
When I moved here, I realized that people were much more, embarrassed probably, or maybe a little bit feeling guilty or shamed that their children had lice. So I realized that it was so important to continue with my slogans and educating people about the importance of, telling others, and that it has nothing to do with hygiene. It's just about head-to-head contact with others, and there is that stigma around it that has been around for, I guess, forever. Just thinking that head lice has something to do with hygiene, but it has nothing to do with that. In fact, I've treated a lot of well-known people here, like families that are very, very wealthy, the wealthiest families of Tennessee here, from the best schools, or maybe even the daughters or sons of stars, like musicians, that have lice, and lice does not discriminate. It can happen to anyone, yeah.
We've heard that line more than once today. That's Marcela Naras, owner of Lice is Easy, which has treatment salons in East Nashville and in Brentwood. Her son, Santiago Galera, owns a mobile service called Lice is Simple, not to be confused. So he's back in the studio with us, Catherine Smith of Metro Public Health Department and the Tennessee Association of School Nurses. And we'll wrap the hour talking about prevention and misconceptions. When it comes to school nurses, how big of a job, how big of a part of their job is dealing with lice, Catherine?
It's actually not as big of a part of their job as you would think. I figured not. We are hiring nurses, by the way. So for Metro School,
so it's like you'd work for Metro Public Health Department, but work in Metro schools?
Correct.
Does every school have a nurse?
We are working towards that goal as hard and as quickly as we can.
But there are openings.
There are.
They each should have a nurse.
Yes, we have funding for a nurse in every school.
And this is the person, though, that when lice happens, nurse is going to get involved.
The nurse is going to get involved and be super supportive and helpful, and not only educate the family on how to handle it, but provide resources for mobile units, local resources, and guidance on how to handle that situation at home.
Well, Santi, there really is such poor data about lice. I mean, really, like how many, the numbers of, that kind of thing. So, you're kind of anecdotal evidence of somebody who works on this every day. I mean, you're going to leave here and go to a school where you're going to work on kids who have lice. Talk to me about, who gets it? Is this mostly folks of long hair? Does the color of their hair matter? What do you see?
Everyone gets it. It doesn't, like everyone on the show has said, it doesn't discriminate. But we tend to see a lot of cases with girls a lot of the times just because they have longer hair. And lice don't jump, they don't fly or do anything like that. They crawl really fast and they love loose hair strands. So
the sort of flyaway hairs, I could imagine, as my kindergartner, who I put on a bus today to school with her hair just flowing around.
Exactly.
That's a problem.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but when you are, in a school environment where a lot of head-to-head contact is going on, it could be a bad thing, I don't like to say that, but a lot of times it spreads that way.
Well, what about texture of hair? Because I had read that, African Americans don't typically get lice. And then I was reading in the research in the Academy of Pediatrics, and it was like, well, there's really not good data on that. I mean, do you see that ethnicity makes any sort of difference?
No, it's not the ethnicity. So lice like clean hair. So by that, I mean they like clean hair because they find it easier to attach to. And so when people use a lot of products in their hair, the lice find it harder to attach to those types of hair.
So you're saying gelling one's hair is sort of a preventative measure?
Exactly.
Really?
Exactly. So boys that have short hair, we tell them to use gel, and that is a great preventative.
Wow. So you're not saying that you need to slick it all the way down, right?
Well, we're not saying that, but loose hair strands are,
Yeah. 50s hairstyles coming back, I guess.
Exactly.
I don't know, after this show. Catherine, this may be something you could weigh in on. I mean, like preventative oils and stuff. Is there anything that nurses recommend?
No, we don't recommend any type of preventative oils in the hair.
Yeah.
It's more of awareness of watching for it and speaking with your child's friend's parents, and really being open to communicate on what's going on. I love that he said that long hair isn't a problem. It's not. I think the reason it's easier also is they like the dark. And so that long hair gives that shade. So they run from the light. So when you're checking, they scurry away because they don't want to be found. Yeah.
So that's why you checking ahead is not just part the hair and see if you see anything. You've got to go in depth.
You've got to look harder than that.
What does a check look like, Santi?
So we do extensive head checks at Lice Simple. You have to go from the back of the neck all the way to the front of the hairline. They do like hiding when we're checking, and it's important to go from all the way to the back of the neck to the front of the hairline.
But they're moving while you're doing it? I thought they attach to the hair, and that's the thing that makes them so insidious.
Well, we have our sprays that stop them from running away.
Really?
Yeah, so a lot of the times during our head checks, we spray the hair with water and some peppermint oil in there, and that stops them from moving. And then that allows
temporarily they'll be still.
Exactly.
I see. And then you can find them and pop them, and you actually hear them pop. Yes. Are there any home remedies that work, Catherine?
I'm sure there are. You can find a lot of home remedies available even at Walgreens, Walmart, any CVS.
Even aside from the stuff you can get over the counter, I didn't know if there were any home remedies that people have thought could be effective.
They do. They like to use olive oil or coconut oil sometimes, and just really get in there and think that might 100% stop their child from getting lice.
Yeah. Did I read something about mayonnaise?
I'm sure you probably did.
Santi, what have you seen?
Well, a lot of the research online is spread out. You see a lot of different kinds of remedies for head lice, and mayonnaise is one of them. I've heard of clients using that in the past, and I feel bad for them. I don't know why they were putting mayonnaise in their hair. But I think one of the real problems about over-the-counter treatments is that if you leave one knit behind, that knit is going to hatch in 7 to 10 days and just
so you think you've got it.
Exactly.
You think you've handled it, and then you learn 10 days later that you still got it.
So it's important to have a follow-up protocol when you're treating it, even with an over-the-counter treatment. You need to have that that follow-up protocol that stops the lice from hatching and reproducing again.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. We're talking about when lice happens, and I promise we will stop talking about that in 5 minutes, and you can stop wanting to scratch your head. I do, Catherine, I wonder if you would talk about how families should go about informing others who are around them, this whole friends tell friends idea. Like, I mean, when thinking of this, I was thinking about back to sort of COVID and all the messiness of informing other folks. It's not obviously quite high stakes like that, but it might be taken that way, frankly. What do you all recommend as the School Nurses Association?
So it really is a parent talking to a parent. And a lot of times that's going to be the best way to handle it. They need to sit down and talk with their child. They know if their child's been to a sleepover, had friends over, gone to a party, they can sit down and just kind of look at that and just let those parents know to be aware that their child has had lice and they may need to do some checks of their own.
Yeah. Santi, how do you all handle that? What do you recommend when you're working with a family and say, here's how we would suggest you kind of get the word out?
Well, it's important that families know that if they have head lice leave a scent behind, and they are people that have it are more prone to get it again from the people that they are hanging out with and that they are close in contact with. So,
wait, you're saying that not only do you not build up a resistance, like if you got a cold, you might not get it again, even though you gave it to your sibling, you are more likely to get it back.
Yes, because other lice can smell it, and they can sense that there's the source for food there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend to the families you're working with?
So that's why we have a follow-up protocol that is so important. We have our clients spray 3 to 5 sprays of our simple serum for the next 10 days. And after those 10 days, that scent goes away. And we have a follow-up guarantee for 30 days.
Yeah. So you're saying that sort of the one-time treatment, either way, you've got to stay on top of it after the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like the flu; it comes back.
Yeah. Catherine, when you are dealing with school leaders who are struggling with, how to handle something that's going on in their own school, maybe even about kids who aren't getting treated, or they aren't, as we heard from Tanya, who has a preschool, like previous to this, they weren't sure someone was getting treated, even though they were supposed to. Mm-hmm. How do you recommend that they handle that when you really, have to just trust them that they're taking care of it?
Yeah, it's important for schools to develop policies on a return to school for students that have gone home with lice. They can contact the health department or send them to the health department to get checked.
Really?
You can.
You're saying if a school didn't have a nurse there and they're here in Davidson County, let's say, they could say, would you come by the Lens Health Center and they'll do a check?
Find a nurse to do a check.
Really?
It's not done very often,
okay.
So you'll probably be met with some questions. But yes, we have a management team of nurses.
Well, who would do such a thing? Well, but it sounds like the effort is to keep them in school, if at all possible. So it seems like the recommendation is actually not to stiff arm them from coming back and just say, hey, we'd like you to get treated. Mm-hmm. If you need any help with that, here's some information, but kind of leaving it in their court.
Yes. So as far as the school nursing perspective, our only avenue is to educate and offer those resources.
Yep.
And to let them know that if their child comes back to school, as a health department employee, we can recheck them. We don't recommend rechecking for 3 days because after that first treatment,
you're going to find some things, but
possibly, or you might not find anything.
Because you've already pulled the eggs out. I see. Mm-hmm. All right, Santi, we'll leave it here. What's one thing a family could do when lice is discovered in their house to make the experience as easy as possible?
Call lice.
Oh,
simple.
no, dude.
Yes, nice.
Well, I teed him up for that one.
Well, we
touche,
take care of
you
it
win.
in 30 minutes or less.
Just got to remember, it can happen to anyone.
Can happen to anyone, and that is the takeaway today. Thank you both for tuning in, or thank you for being on the show, and thanks listeners for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville's a production of Nashville Public Radio. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Limley with help from Mary Mancini. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. Mastermind behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And you can ask a smart speaker to play the latest episode of This Is Nashville. I actually did it this morning just to make sure it works as easy as I said. And at least mine, it popped right up there. Or you can watch the video live stream that's archived at the Nashville Public Radio YouTube page. The conversation doesn't have to end here, and it doesn't have to be about lice. You can comment and tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on Blue Sky and Instagram and X at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.